What is up, people? I just got back from. No, I didn't. Okay. Sorry. It's. My head is still spinning here. I just got back from seeing Amazing Spider-Man 2 last night, and that was actually my second viewing. I went all the way over to Madison or Fitchburg, really, which is like an hour and 20 minutes away from here, just to go see it in IMAX 3D, which is the first movie I've seen in IMAX 3D. And then I went back and I watched it here at the local theater, same night. So, well, yeah, that was pretty cool. Caught an early show in the IMAX and then caught one midnight last night, and it was okay. I need to make some thoughts clear here. This movie, it, really, unlike any other comic book movie currently being made, and I mean, it's a league of its own right now, and there's a reason for that. But I cannot stress enough this. Um, oh boy. This is the single closest thing to a comic book brought to life that I have ever seen, that anyone has ever produced, and I mean that. The characterizations, Peter Parker. Oh my God, man, Peter Parker in this movie is so straight off the page. It's not even funny. He is still, when he gets nervous, he's still a stammering dork. He's clumsy. He's got that bad luck streak. Um, he's half asleep. Tries to, his phone's ringing. He tries to web it up to him. Accidentally grabs a metal bar by his phone, and zips it into his face instead. Stuff like that. Um, he stumbles. He misjudges things when he's in a hurry. He's in a hurry to catch up to Gwen at one point. Swings, overswings, slams into the building, bounces off, rolls, starts walking next to her like it's nothing. It's funny, and it's great. He does manage to really bring the dorkier aspects to Peter Parker to life, while not making him a complete and total caricature, which is amazing. Um, you don't have to have somebody constantly dumping his proverbial books, or in some cases, literally dumping his books, to illustrate that he is a dork, a geek. You don't need to do that, and that this proves it's done beautifully. Um, and what he does as Spider-Man, oh man, they kind of did in the last movie, but I honestly think, looking back, that they might have been, I don't know, afraid of it, afraid to go all out with it, trying to be more restrained. This one, they just said screw it and went all out. That is Spider-Man, period. You will get no better depiction of Spider-Man, bar none. The way he is written here, the jokes, the attitude, the everything is Spider-Man. I mean, oh man, just the way he interacts with Paul Giamatti's character when he first shows up, right off the page. The way, the way he quips at people right off the page. The way that he is able to empathize with people and want to help them. His first instinct when he sees Electro and sees that he is in fact just scared and doesn't know what to do, is to try to calm him down and help him. Because if he doesn't, he's going to hurt himself and he's going to get a lot of people hurt. And that is Spider-Man. And I cannot stress enough, that was incredible. Emma Stone playing Gwen, honestly, I don't know what to say. She still manages to make her likable, and I've never really been fond of Gwen in the comics ever. I just her character to me was very blah. She didn't really have too much of a personality. She was kind of the one who did most of this. Oh, I can't live like this, Peter. Oh, Peter, don't leave me. Oh, I can't live like this, Peter. Oh, Peter, don't leave me. Oh, Peter, don't run off on me all the time. And then she, snap on anyone else who would say the same thing. So, just really inconsistent. I don't know. I just really did not like her. She wasn't hateable. I never really felt terribly fond of her. I don't know. That being said, Emma Stone and the way she's written the film gives her a lot more personality, a lot more likability, so that's a huge plus. And she does it again here, and the chemistry those two have, incredible, and it's just really well done. I also like how, unlike her comic counterpart, she's not really the damsel in distress type when things get bad. So, yeah. Now, moving on to Max Dillon. Max Dillon, I see a lot of Batman and Robin comparisons, and I don't know why. He was not Jim Carrey's Riddler. I see so many people trying to default to that just because he was a fan of Spider-Man. That's not the case. Jim Carrey's Riddler, the reason that he was such a fan of Bruce Wayne wasn't because he thought he was so spectacular. It wasn't because, all this. It was because he was an arrogant bastard, okay? And he believed that Bruce Wayne was his only real intellectual equal on the same plane. Which is why he also believed Wayne was going to approve his device. And when he didn't, that's when his opinion of him sank, because he felt that he was just not smart enough to understand. So then Bruce Wayne became intellectually his inferior in his mind, and he set out to basically ruin him competitively. But in this case, Max Dillon becomes obsessed with Spider-Man because Spider-Man saved him. Spider-Man remembered his name. Even the people that he works with tend to not remember his name or just not see him. And I mean, he was practically invisible to everybody. I mean, it's kind of funny too, because in a way he's almost the dork that Tobey Maguire was made out to be at times, but taken to like an even bigger extreme in that sense. But it's just hardly anybody notices him. He is a dork, and I don't know. I kind of like that idea. It really hasn't been done before, and this idea of someone who's clearly mentally unstable already. I mean, he has conversations with Spider-Man inside his head. He's convinced that Spider-Man is his best friend just because he remembered his name. Even when, Gwen, someone who just met him, managed to remember his name, that alone shocked him. He is someone who is used to being very overlooked, and I like how they handled that. It was a bit cheesy, but in a good kind of way. I mean, this is a guy who you have to wonder how in the world he's going to become a threat, and then when he does, it's just wow. I mean, he's pretty clearly already unstable, so you can see how that could make him become at some point some sort of villainous character, but you'd almost expect him to be somehow some kind of a joke or some kind of stalkery type threat, but no, he's a genuine threat. And then when he becomes Electro, oh my god, just wow. He goes hardcore angry. And, I mean, he's already mentally unstable. He goes through this trauma. He's in Times Square. He's on all these screens. Everybody's seeing him. Everyone's recognizing him. But they're all still trying to kill him. And that's upsetting him, and he's begging them, please don't. Then when Spider-Man shows up, he's telling him, calm down, nobody's gonna hurt you, nobody's gonna do nothing, stay right there. Tells him not to move because he has that electrical current, and it's transferring it all around Times Square because, well, there's metal grates, the ground is wet, and there are people around, and they could get hurt, and he could get hurt, and so he's telling them to stay right there. But then, because he takes one step slightly backwards into a puddle of water, electricity starts coursing through him, and one of the police snipers shoots him. From there, he not only believes that Spider-Man set him up to get shot, but when all the TV cameras and everything switch away from him and start putting Spider-Man on all those jumbotrons, he thinks he's doing this to steal the spotlight and to try to get rid of him. He feels betrayed, and he goes crazy. And I really also think that was pretty well handled. And honestly, his motivation is indeed very similar to Max Dillon's from the comics. Max Dillon does not, he was always a nobody. Even when, he was able to get the other kids to play with him, he'd stammer, he'd stutter because he was nervous, he'd wind up picked on. People just really did not know him. He was a literal nobody. And he became obsessed, once he got his powers, with not being seen as a nobody ever again. And that translates very well into this story. Now, in terms of Harry, I see a lot of people complain about Harry because they say that his introduction just happens. Not sure how you can introduce a character without introducing the character. I really don't get that complaint, but okay. There's also the viral. The viral campaign in the Daily Bugle posts that they've been putting up. I really wish people would have actually, read those and not dismissed them as something stupid or gimmicky. Now, I don't know why people are dismissing those Daily Bugle posts because they do set up the entrance of Harry Osborn very, very nicely. They establish what he's been doing, and it's stated in the movie too, but, it's kind of designed as a tease-in, and it works pretty well. But really, Harry does show up and sees his father. His father's dying. His father basically tells him the company's yours, and, oh, by the way, here's this nice little tidbit of information, and then, that's that. So, Harry is left running this company, and, things happen. He winds up becoming very, very desperate. I'll say that much. His reunion with Peter is done very well, and they do an actually pretty good job of establishing that these two have been friends since being kids. And the reunion is very emotional, it's very heartfelt, and then when things finally do, pick up for the two of them, it, you can believe that these two are friends. They have really good chemistry. They have a similar history with parents who Harry's dad shipped him off to boarding school when he was 11 and wasn't really around for him. Peter's dad took off when he was 8. And, yeah, it's understandable, really, to, to see why those two get along. And it's pretty well handled, and when Harry does indeed become desperate, you can feel that he's becoming desperate. You can understand why. You can understand what's pushing him to this point. But when he does get to this point, yeah, you know that this guy's gone way too far. And while the path to get there is understandable to a degree, it's one of those cases where you can sympathize with them, but you're still very much rooting for them to be taken down. And that is indeed the case here. I also like, he's a very comic accurate Harry too. He's got a hipster streak going on. You know, he runs around dressed in those scarves you know, he tends to just throw money at a problem. Harry did that in the comics too. He seems to just accept this idea that people only want, you know, everybody wants to be around him for his money. Sometimes even his friends he will treat that way. Um, and that does kind of come through here. Um, you know, he seems to think he can buy anything. Everybody wants money. So that's actually also very well translated from comic to screen. And, well, since it's really no spoiler that he becomes the Green Goblin at this point, when he does that, that is genuinely terrifying. When he first shows up, he's got this really cynical and kind of sinister cackle, but at one point when he's flying around, you hear this, like, unfortunately, it's kind of dampened by the music, and I'm not sure if that was done because they thought it might scare kids too much or what, but you can hear it behind, you know, right in there with the music, and it is this loud, insane, almost screeching laugh, and it is just wow. And the way he does too almost seems a completely different person when he's in that persona. Far more unhinged, far more aggressive. His powers are definitely enhanced. I mean, Peter's sitting there hitting him full on, and it's only, you know, raising him about as much as a normal punch would. And it's just, yeah, it's pretty dang good. Um, Now, what am I thinking? Oh yeah, as for the Electro deal, oh man, that is seriously one of the best fights I've ever seen in a superhero film. It is easily the most brutal. Um, well, it's debatable on whether or not stuff from Captain America 2 was more brutal, just because, you know, on the one hand, that was a lot more personal and felt like it could really happen. But this, in terms of scope and in terms of, you know, just how hard things are being slammed around, that's freaking brutal. Okay, nothing has been like this before in a Spider-Man film, and intense. And I love that too. I love the spectacle of it and how they're not doing what Marvel's doing. Marvel has this really bad habit, to be perfectly blunt, of scaling down everything. They scale down the villains. They scale down the powers. You know, I mean, Thor and the Hulk. These are beings who are obscenely powerful in the comics, and yet here you're probably looking at someone maybe strong enough to lift and throw a tank, maybe. Um, you know, I mean, these are extreme levels of power, and you know they scale them down for the sake of grounding it in the movies. The villains too. To be perfectly blunt, Marvel is very short on memorable villains. Villains who had an overall arc and who then, you know, did something to leave an imprint, something that was huge. Loki is mostly remembered solely because of his relationship with Thor and because of what he did with the Chitauri. Bucky's going to be remembered pretty much solely because of his connection to Cap. But, you know, I mean, pretty much everyone else has been very more or less forgettable, save unless you count controversy, in which case, yeah, sure, the whole Killian thing, I guess, but that's not necessarily remembered for a good reason. Um, but this, you're not going to forget what Electro was capable of. You're not going to forget what he did. It was so big and so comic-y. I mean, it really felt like something right out of a comic. It really did. It was just that big and over the top, and yet done very well. This, yeah, I mean, it's huge. Um, that being said, honestly, I really don't understand this idea that this movie's overcrowded with characters. To be perfectly blunt, there's four main characters. There really are only four main characters, and then there are a few supporting characters. And supporting main characters would be Peter, Gwen, Max Dillon, Harry Osborn. Supporting characters would be Donald Menken, Felicia Hardy. I assume she's Felicia Hardy. She's Felicia anyway. Who else? Aunt May, obviously, and Peter's parents. Everyone else is minor. In fact, even Felicia I'd probably count as minor. So is Smythe. The idea, and honestly, so is Alexei. This idea that there are all these characters that were in there that they just didn't do anything with. Of course, they didn't do anything with them. They're minor characters at this point. The problem is, I see a lot of people seeming to think that because these are big, recognizable names, that they were supposed to have some kind of big impact, and that's not the case. And here's why. I have been reading Spider-Man comics almost my whole life, and one thing that I can tell you is that a lot of times characters who are going to have a bigger role in the future will have almost a bit part when they're first introduced, and it will be small. And for example, in the case of Roderick Kingsley, when he's first introduced, he's actually someone Spider-Man has to protect from competition that's trying to outright kill him. He's a fashion mogul. And he was a very small character for a long period of time before he finally, is revealed to be the Hobgoblin. And, Alistair Smythe in this case could be a very small part until he finally unveils, Spider Slayers or something along those lines. It's pretty clear Rhino's going to have a bigger role in the future. Chris Cooper already said that his character of Norman Osborn is going to have a bigger role in the future, and that's going to be very interesting to see, considering what happens in this film. But, but yeah, it's these characters are indeed, minor. And as for these, multiple plot lines, I don't understand that. There's really three main strands. You have Peter and him trying to balance his life as Spider-Man with his life as Peter Parker and the situation with Gwen. You have, and his parents, and you have Max Dillon and his journey to being Electro, and you have Harry Osborn learning what he learns, his desperation, and his journey to becoming the Green Goblin. And every single strand is woven together into one narrative. So this idea that there's multiple plot lines to the point where there's no plot, not the case. I cannot understand how anyone can come to that conclusion. I can't. I watched the movie twice. I watched it once, I got super excited, I calmed down, I went back, I watched the second, and it's still there. There's still a narrative, the plots all fit together. It's not like Spider-Man 3 where it's like three completely separate plots, but then let's just cram them together in the end. No, they all naturally intertwine throughout the entirety of the film. And it works really well. And again, it feels like a comic because comics will often do that. Also feeling like a comic is just, well, the scale of it. And well, the tone. People keep saying, "Oh, tonal shift. It can't decide what it wants to be. One moment it's dark, the next it's light and fluffy, and that's Spider-Man." I mean, we're talking about a guy who, in the middle of a life or death situation, will sit there making jokes at his enemy's expense. We are talking about a guy who will, one moment he's happy, everything's going alright, the next minute, boom, half the city's being destroyed, he has to go stop it. And, or, even on the heels of a triumph, when he wins, something horrible happens in his personal life, and then he has to deal with that. That is Spider-Man. And the fact that this is done in the movie, and done well, to be perfectly blunt, is a plus. This is what I mean. The spectacle, the scale, the tone, the story, even, I'll admit there's some cheese there, but it's in a good way, in an acceptable way, in a comic book way. And that's all there. This is literally the closest thing I have ever seen in my entire life to bringing a comic book to life. And I know a lot of people like to make that claim about the Avengers. Nah. The Avengers did indeed abandon a lot of comic book tone and fare for the sake of grounding it. The reason people say it feels like it is because of the way the characters from multiple films are brought together into one movie. It had never been seen before. And yeah, that is good, and it's a great movie, especially taking the build-up into account. But it's not a comic book brought to life. This is very much a comic book brought to life. I literally could not be happier with this movie. That just amazing. It really is. Easy 5/5. I mean, to me, this is the epitome of a comic book film. It really is. And I really do not understand the hate I see for it. A lot of it I see tends to stem from the fact that people can't seem to get over the fact it's not Sam Raimi and that it's not tying in with Marvel. I mean, there are open statements in half the reviews out there that, this isn't Sam Raimi, this isn't Sam Raimi, this isn't Sam Raimi. No, it's not. And we've known that for many years now, so why haven't we moved on? Why do we keep saying that this somehow needs to justify its existence? No, it doesn't. It exists. And we need to accept that and go forward. But we won't for some reason. I don't. I also, though, one last note, I do love how they handled the ending and the intro. The intro, when you see Peter again being Spider-Man, just the way he's fighting the Rhino, the way he's handling, Alexei and the attitude he has, and then the way it ends, where he's right back to that same villain, only more powerful. He's back to his old self fighting. Honestly, to me, that was the perfect way to handle that, considering what happens in the film. And it's going to be very hard for me to talk about that without spoilers. I might touch on that again in a separate video after at least the weekend's over to give people time to see it. But this movie was just incredible. I cannot stress that enough. At any rate, I will catch you guys later. See ya.